So hopefully, at this point, you haven't discussed anything we're going to cover next. And that is analyzing the game pieces and the arena elements, so that way you can start deciding on what actions and advantages there are on the field, so that way you can then decide on what qualities your robot is going to have. So at this point, what we've discussed is the positive point actions, the opportunities you have there, the penalties for doing things in a wrong way, and recording the rules. That's the big thing. Record all of the rules that are applicable to each of these things. In this example, it only has a sparing number of rules cited, but you're going to want to have multiple applicable rules to all of these things. It's really going to inform your decisions going down the line. So then your game pieces, this is what really changes every year. The positive points, the names will change to protect the innocent, but really there's always a game piece, there's a target, duh. The game pieces in this example were frisbees, effectively, and there were colored discs per alliance, and then there was white discs that each alliance could use, etc. And like in the previous sections, we're going to want to go through this in column by column, and you're going to identify all of the game elements that are significant to scoring, okay, or significant to the penalties. You want to get these things defined and the whole team understanding them. So you had white discs, alliance discs, you had the high goal, medium goal, low goal, the towers. There were multiple tower levels, so we broke those out in this example. There were feeders where the game pieces could be brought into the game and brought into gameplay. And so there was a protected feeder and there was an unprotected feeder. So there were different things that would apply to those, obviously. And there was a starting area, there was the autonomous section, and that was something that really applied to robot design and in-game strategy, but there were certain, how is that defined? How is that described in the manual? So you want to get that into here. So you want to go through and just list those things out. Then you'll start defining them. So for the discs, a really quick one is how many exist in the entire game, and where are they at. So some are behind the wall, some are on the floor. You might want to, if it's really meaningful, break out those white discs in multiple rows here of where are the ones on the floor. Be more specific. Where are they placed? Now, the game pieces have a certain physical element to them. There's the weight. There are relevant dimensions. List those out here. Make sure that the whole team has a place to refer to that. So that way you're not relying on conjecture later down the road or in the immediate time either. What is it about the high goal that is meaningful? What is it about the medium goal that is meaningful? Where are they at on the game field? Make sure everyone actually understands that. In a lot of games, you will have targets or feeder stations or whatever that are alliance specific. So you're going to know where those are at. They're not always on your side of the field relative to the driver station. They're not always on the opposite side of the field relative to your driver station. And they're certainly not always all on one or the other. So make sure the whole team understands where those things are at. It's really, really easy to fall into the simple trap of thinking that you can just take the short route and not even mess with the whole field. Well, no, actually, the point A and the point B that you were talking about aren't your point A and your point B. It's their point A and your point B. And then all of a sudden the student has this moment of realization, oh, this game's harder than I thought. Well, yeah, that's the point. So have that discussion. Make sure everyone understands that. Now, it's also very relevant to have a definite measurement, and that's all provided, on how high these things are. So before you get into qualifying, is it easy or hard? Well, what is it? What actually is it? How can you measure it? How wide is that opening? How high off the ground is it? Get those pieces of information in there. In this particular game, there were vision targets, so we went ahead and made a note of that. That way the robot could potentially have something to reference off of to improve accuracy or do things in a fully autonomous or semi-autonomous way. So go ahead and list those out. Again, these aren't really highly contentious items. These are just simple facts. Find the facts, refer to where it's at. So we didn't do that here, but you might want to make another column here that says the table it was referenced off of, or the section that it was described in. You want to go through this whole process. Again, it's not complicated. It should go pretty straightforward if you can have good leadership within your student base to keep everyone focused and on target. So then we got into starting configuration. At the beginning of the match, where can your robot be before you start doing your autonomous stuff? Sometimes you have to be in a specific location butted up against an item. Sometimes it's just anywhere on the entire field. Yours to play with. Go for it. You want to define that. So in this game, the robots had to be starting touching the pyramid. There's always a stipulation of, can it be supported by part of the arena, or does it have to be touching entirely fully supported by the floor? Well, okay, in this case, you had to be fully supported by the floor. You can't be hanging off of the tower to begin with. Can you have any game pieces already on your robot? List out all of these things. And again, make note of what rule is applicable. Know where to go in the manual to find it. It's over 100 pages. Don't manually thumb through it or think that hitting Control F is going to find every single reference to what you're talking about. Dig through it, start building this index of your own of where to find the information relevant to what you're describing. Okay, so again, we're just defining things. We haven't made any decisions yet in this section. So let's go back to our schedule of itinerary. All right, so we've analyzed the game pieces. We've analyzed the arena elements. We've looked at our starting configuration. Now's the fun part.